It is March 2013, and the red Bullseye has crossed the border. In parking lots from Halifax to suburban Vancouver, Canadians line up for a retailer they already think they know. They have driven south for years to fill carts in Buffalo and Bellingham. They have worn the clothes, bought the detergent, posted the hauls. Today, the store has come to them. The doors open. The lights are perfect. The floors are polished. The shopping carts unstack with that familiar click. And the shelves are empty. Not sparse, empty. Entire aisles of nothing where cereal should sit, where towels should be stacked, where a pharmacy wall should already be humming. A few sad end caps, a scattering of seasonal boxes. This is Target, the company that spent decades teaching America that replenishment could be a science. The company whose distribution machine was supposed to be invisible because the product was always there when you reached for it. In Canada, the machine is visible because it is missing. Within 24 months, every one of those stores will be dark. 133 locations, opened in a sprint, will be closed in a second sprint. The Bullseye will be peeled off the glass.
The leases will be dumped. A retail invasion that was supposed to redraw a country's shopping map becomes something colder. A famous name losing the room in public. The contradiction is almost insulting. Target did not fail here because Canadians rejected the brand. They had already accepted it. They had already spent money on it in another country on purpose. The failure is more intimate. The brand arrived without the one thing a store actually is, a working path from a warehouse to a shelf. How does a company that knows how to stock a building forget how to stock a building? That is the quiet fracture inside the wreckage. Not a fashion miss, not a currency panic, not a rival that out-advertised them on television. A back-office problem so mundane it barely sounds like tragedy, until you watch a national subsidiary starve in fluorescent light, one empty bay at a time. Shoppers do not file complaints about enterprise software. They just stop coming.
The illusion began 2 years earlier, and from Minneapolis, it looked like a door left unlocked. In January 2011, Target Corporation agreed to pay about $1.8 billion for the lease rights to as many as 220 Zellers locations, a fading discount banner folded inside Hudson's Bay Company. Zellers was already losing the weekly trip to Walmart Canada. The real estate, though, was national. Mall wings, power center parking lots, corners Canadians already drove past on the way home. For a board watching its home market thicken with competitors, the map looked like destiny at a discount. Canadian households were not a mysterious tribe. They watched the same commercials. They knew the Bullseye. On weekends, they crossed at Niagara Falls and Blaine, filled trunks with cheap cotton and home decor, then treated the receipts like trophies. Executives read that traffic as a pre-sold customer base. If a family would burn a Saturday and a border wait for Target, they would certainly walk into one 10 minutes from home. The blind spot sat inside the word store. A lease is not a working retailer. A Zellers floor plate was poured for a different chain's logic. Different back rooms, different fixture runs, different receiving docks, different bones. Converting 200-plus boxes on a compressed calendar meant construction crews, municipal permits, bilingual signage, grocery coolers, and hiring curves stacked until none of them had slack. Target did not buy a living Canadian operation. It bought a collection of tired rooms and a clock. There was another assumption, quieter and more expensive. The company would not tiptoe. It would not open a dozen pilots, learn the grocery codes, learn trucking distances between Ontario and the prairies, then scale. It would stand up a country. 3 distribution centers would rise from dirt. A merchandising organization would be hired from zero. An information system would be switched on as if a nation were merely a new store in Texas. Walmart had already spent years learning Canada the hard way. Canadian Tire, Loblaw, Shoppers Drug Mart, and a dense web of regional grocers already owned the weekly habit. Target's name was famous. Its Canadian plumbing did not exist. Grocery was supposed to be the frequency engine, the reason a household came twice a week instead of twice a season. Fresh food is unforgiving. Milk does not wait for a software patch. Produce does not forgive a missing item file.
A chain that wanted to be in the refrigerator was volunteering for the harshest test of replenishment. In a country whose packaging rules, French language requirements, and metric labels were not a copy of Minneapolis. Canadian newspapers still called it Target Mania. Cities bargained to be early pins on the map. Shoppers spoke as if a cultural object were being delivered, not a logistics network that had not been built. Hudson's Bay received cash and a way to exit a dying banner. Target received speed. Speed is a narcotic inside a successful company. It feels like competence. The first wave of openings arrived in March 2013 anyway. Then more, a drumbeat of ribbons through the year until the fleet was national. Prices often sat above what the border run had taught people to expect. Assortments felt thinner than the American memory. The slogan had been expect more, pay less. The rooms delivered less, and sometimes nothing at all.
What most people still miss is that the wreck was scheduled before the first nasty headline. Bulk real estate creates a calendar creates a go-live. A go-live without a living supply chain creates empty bays that look to a customer like arrogance. By the time the logo was on the glass, the company had already chosen not to inherit a Canadian operational history. It would invent one in public at national scale while customers took attendance. Greg Steinhoffel sat at the top of the American pyramid, a career company man who had watched the Red brand become a cultural object. Domestic growth was getting harder. A Canadian push was the kind of move a chief executive could put on a slide and feel the room lean forward. He needed a country that looked like home. Canada looked like home with a different flag. Tony Fisher became president of Target Canada, charged with standing up a subsidiary as if it were a startup wearing a giant's name. His job was speed and polish. Opening dates were public promises. Miss them, and the story in Minneapolis becomes hesitation. Hit them, and the story becomes destiny. The motive is not cartoon greed. It is career gravity. International expansion is how a mature retailer proves it is still a growth company. Analysts reward a map with new pins. A slow, humiliating pilot in Winnipeg does not thrill a quarterly call. A 100-store year does. So the life or death choices get made in rooms that smell like confidence. They will not gently extend the United States merchandising stack north and let it learn.
They will install a new enterprise platform for the new country, a clean SAP landscape, modern, unified, worthy of a greenfield. On a whiteboard, cleanliness is a virtue. In a warehouse, cleanliness is a fantasy if the data feeding the machine is being typed by exhausted people against an opening day clock. They will hire thousands on a curve that looks like a hockey stick. Store teams can be trained in weeks to smile and fold apparel. The invisible jobs take longer. Planners, allocators, vendor file clerks, people who know what a case pack means when a single product wears 6 barcodes and 2 languages. They will treat suppliers as if American gravity already applies. Some are ready, many are not. A Canadian grocery file is not a Twin Cities grocery file. A vendor who has never shipped Target before does not arrive with a perfect item master. Someone still has to type the truth into the system, field by field, before the system can pretend to be intelligent. Fisher's organization lives inside an impossible triangle. Build the rooms, fill the rooms, teach the software to tell the truth about the rooms. Any two might have been doable.
All three, on the same calendar, turns employees into the last fuse. In cubicles and vendor portals, people are told the item file must be complete. Complete, not correct. Those are different religions. Completeness ships a date. Correctness ships a can of soup. Steinhoffel, from the American side, sees a brand the country already loves. He cannot see a dimension field with the wrong unit. No chief executive can. That is the cruelty of operational ambition. The higher you sit, the more a bare aisle looks like a local execution miss, not a design. By late 2013, the ribbons are still being cut, while the back rooms are already whispering. Trailers wait, pallets sit. A president of a new country cannot stand on a stage and say the database is lying, so they open anyway.
The system goes live, and the country becomes a warehouse that cannot speak to a store.
SAP is supposed to be the nervous system. What a product is, how big it is, how many sit in a case, where those cases live, and which truck should move them before a shelf goes bald. In Canada, the nervous system is being born in public. Product records are keyed under a deadline that does not care about truth. Dimensions are typed by people bouncing between American inches and Canadian centimeters. A toaster becomes a piece of furniture in the computer's imagination. A case pack of 12 becomes a case of 1 or a case of 100. Weights lie, heights lie, vendor pack quantities lie. Investigative reconstructions later put the damage in a single humiliating fraction. Only about 30% of the product data is accurate. 70% of the catalog is a rumor with a barcode. Now watch what a rumor does to steel and cardboard. At the distribution centers in Milton, Cornwall, and Calgary, inventory arrives because suppliers still ship. Pallets rise into the racks. The building fills.
The software, reading its own fiction, cannot confidently convert that merchandise into store-bound trailers. It thinks a bulky item is small enough to flow. It thinks a small item needs a bay. It thinks stock exists in a location that is empty, and thinks a location is empty that is choking on unsellable overflow. Allocators stare at screens that disagree with the concrete floor under their shoes. Trailers leave late, or leave wrong, or do not leave. Some goods never receive a clean passport out of the building. The warehouse becomes a museum of products a customer will never touch. Meanwhile, the selling floor is a different planet. A guest walks into a new Target in the Greater Toronto area looking for the American miracle of always there. The bay is a hole. The end cap is a hole. The grocery bunker is a hole. A manager walks the aisle with a handheld that insists the back room is full. The back room is not full. Or it is full of the wrong size, of the wrong thing in a quantity that cannot be sold as presented. Trust dies on the first visit. A Canadian household that drove to Buffalo for years does not need a second lesson. The memory of the brand was abundance.
The local experience is scarcity wearing better lighting. Word travels faster than any advertising budget. Empty is a story people love to tell. Vendors feel a different violence. Purchase orders lurch. Replenishment signals contradict last week's order. Chargebacks land on companies that did what they were asked and still cannot get their goods onto a shelf. Some suppliers pull back. Others drown the DCs in product because the system keeps asking for more of what it cannot place. Cash ties up in cartons that are, in a practical sense, already dead. Prices do not rescue the room. Guests already suspected Canadian Target would be more expensive than the border run. When the cart is also empty, premium pricing becomes an insult. Expect more, pay less, needed the more to be visible. It is not. The year 2014 does not heal it. Fixing a living catalog while stores are open is like rewriting an aircraft's wiring in flight. Every corrected field is surrounded by 10 that still lie. Holiday traffic arrives, the one season that can mint a new chain's reputation, and the machine still cannot promise a toy, a roast, a set of sheets. Managers learn to apologize as a skill.
Shoppers learn a new habit. They go somewhere else, and the habit sticks. In August 2014, Brian Cornell becomes chief executive of Target Corporation. He inherits a famous American retailer and a Canadian subsidiary that is burning cash through a broken replenishment loop. He walks stores. He hears the same sentence in different accents. We came. There was nothing. January 15, 2015, the decision becomes public. Target Canada will seek court protection under the Companies Creditors Arrangement Act. All remaining locations will close. About 17,600 jobs will go with them. Liquidation sales will strip the rooms. The parent company in Minneapolis will not follow the subsidiary into insolvency. American stores will keep trading. American revenue will keep arriving. The truth is narrower and still brutal. A national experiment is being declared unfixable after less than 2 years on the floor. The estimated total cost lands near $7 billion once the lease bet, the build-out, the inventory, the systems, and the write-downs are stacked. That number is not a rumor about a bankrupt parent. It is the price of a subsidiary that could not move boxes from a rack to a hand.
Cornell's choice is cold in the way operational choices are cold. More money might have bought another year of debugging. It would also have bought another year of guests practicing the art of not returning. A brand can survive a bad quarter. It has a harder time surviving the sentence, "They never have what I need." On the last weeks, the warehouses still hold product the stores could never digest. Liquidators price desperation. Fixtures come out of the floor, the bullseye comes off the glass. A country that lined up in 2013 walks past dark buildings in 2015 and feels, briefly, foolish for having believed a logo was a logistics network. The wound does not close when the last till is unplugged. Somewhere in the wreckage is a simpler fact that refuses to become a slogan. The inventory was often there. The truth about the inventory was not. And a store cannot sell a truth it does not have. A famous name is a rumor that operations either confirm or kill. Target Canada is remembered as a retail fiasco, which is accurate and incomplete. Guests did not experience a strategy deck. They experienced a bay with no cereal. Behind that bay was not a mysterious Canadian psyche. Behind it was a file, a dimension, a case quantity, a unit of measure. The smallest clerical lie, multiplied across tens of thousands of items, is enough to starve a nation of stores while the warehouse is grown. The larger principle is unsentimental. Scale is not courage. Scale is readiness. You can buy rooms in 100 towns and still not possess a country. You can hire smiling people in red shirts and still not possess replenishment. You can switch on an expensive platform and still not possess a catalog that tells the truth. Clean data is not an information technology hobby. It is the ghost body of physical inventory. If the ghost is wrong, the pallets become scenery. Successful brands are especially vulnerable to this mistake because success teaches the wrong lesson. In the home market, the machine is invisible, so executives start to believe the logo does the stocking.
Ambition then outruns the unglamorous work, the item master, the vendor onboarding, the quiet extra year in which a pilot is allowed to fail in one city instead of 12 provinces. A deadline that cannot slip is often a confession that prestige has replaced slack. Intention here was not sabotage. Outcome was still a shuttered subsidiary. Allegation is unnecessary. The filings, the closures, the job losses, and the write-downs are enough. Minneapolis remained a going American retailer. Canada became a caution, taped to the idea that affection for a brand is the same thing as a supply chain. Walk in your head through one of those rooms after the fixtures are gone. The fluorescent lights still work. The floor still shines in places. Nothing about the architecture admits defeat. Defeat lived in fields on a screen, in a unit typed fast so a go-live date could survive, in a case pack that never matched the cardboard in the aisle. Companies will keep buying maps. They will keep confusing recognition with readiness. They will keep asking software to midwife a country overnight. Somewhere, a team will be told to finish the file, not to make the file true.
If a store is a promise kept at arm's length, what else is already empty because the database said it was full?